Lisa, can you please talk to us and tell us and explain to us what is so important about the non-financial side of retirement and why is that?
Welcome to Bartelle's Money Talk, your go-to podcast for financial empowerment and insight. Let's dive in.
Yeah, absolutely. So, non-financial side of retirement is when people walk out into retirement and they think to themselves, what am I going to do now? And so the financial side of retirement, that's easy. We plan for that. But then when you walk out this non-financial side, there is the social aspect of it. There's the psychological aspect of it. There is, the physical aspect of it. You're just moving less when you move there. When you go out, there's identity issues. There's so many things that when you leave retirement, because we are attached to our jobs, it's a big part of who we are, particularly when we've been working 30 years in the same role or in the same company. It becomes attached to us. And so there's an adjustment that needs to be made from a psychological perspective that most people walk into retirement and they are not ready for. We just didn't prepare for the fact that there are at least 20, probably 30 or more years left on our life that we don't know what we're going to do with.
Whoa. Well, audience, welcome to Bartelle's Money Talk. I'm Johnny.
And I am Teresa. If you are thinking about retirement or if you're nearing retirement, I encourage you to stay. She has a great book out. And if you want to learn how to retire healthy, you need to stay and listen. So, Lisa, thank you so much for joining us. We're so glad to have you here. And can you introduce yourself to the listeners, please?
Absolutely. My name's Lisa Haynes, and I call myself the Chief Reinvention Wing Woman. And so my job is to help people to find ways to make retirement their next best act. And so I retired last year as a Chief Financial Officer and Chief Diversity Inclusion Officer. I walked out of retirement thinking this is going to be great, and then realized I did not have a plan. I knew that I wanted to do some things. So I said, people said, what are you going to do in your time? Well, I'm going to play with my grandkids and I'm going to, do some travel and hang out with family. And, eventually I think I might, pick up something. I would do some consulting. I always wanted to do executive coaching. And so I had some ideas. But when I actually stepped at home and finished Netflixing and chilling for about 3 or 4 weeks, I realized that what I call every day other than Sunday becomes Saturday. So you have 6 Saturdays in a Sunday, and that is a lot of time. And so nobody wants to spend the rest of their life just watching Netflix and binging on shows. And so I learned about this thing called retirement coaching. I had already decided I was going to be executive coach. I started certification on it. And in the meantime, ran into a colleague who's doing retirement, getting his certification in retirement coaching. Said, never heard of it. Said, I've done, financial coaching with people. And he said, no, this is not the financial side. It's the other side of what are you going to do? I said, oh, I'm experiencing that right now. And so that kind of excited me. I'd finished the certification. And as I'm finishing the certification, I start thinking about, somebody says, well, you should, write a book about it because that always can help you get your message out. Well, when I first retired, I was on a panel and someone asked me, the moderator asked me on the panel, she said, so you've been retired for a little while. How are things going? I said, I think I was born to retire. I'm just really good at this. And it hasn't been that long, but I'm just really good at it. And I told her, I'm killing it, right? So I said, I'm retired and I'm killing it. Well, that turned into, for me, what ended up being what I used to create a formula for how people can retire well, called the Killing It formula. And so I just took each letter of Killing It and I created just an idea of what people should be thinking about. Recognizing for some people who are retired, not a problem. They already had a plan already laid out.
Mm-hmm.
Majority of people that I talk to and clients are like, I'm just afraid. I'm stepping in retirement. I have no idea. Or they've been in retirement. They're past the honeymoon phase of a year or so. And they're like, I am bored. I think I'm going back to work. And if people do go back to work because they're bored. And I hope to help people not go back to work because they're bored. Maybe go back to work because you want to, or because it's something you're really passionate about doing, but certainly not because you're bored. You work 30 years of your life. You shouldn't have to go back just to have something to do. So that's who I am. I'm really excited about being here with you two today. Been looking forward to doing this podcast. So thank you for having me.
Of course.
So I mean, wow, just retirement and going through the whole process of retirement when you've been working for so long.
Yes.
So, what do you think that really surprised you about your own self when you transitioned to retirement? Because I know you mentioned a few things.
Yeah, so I think one of them was I didn't think I was going to hit the identity thing, but I did, right? So that first hit me when I I was helping my job recruit for my replacement, and that's a little bit
Oh,
weird, right? And
Oh, yeah.
so I'm there, but I retire. I told my boss I was going to retire in about is January, February, but I agreed to stay till September because that's the end of our fiscal year, and I was the chief financial officer. So in the meantime, I'm helping with the job description. They post the job and then I share it on LinkedIn. Very weird feeling that I started to feel this identity thing like I literally am not going to be the chief financial officer. And I'd been there
wow.
at that organization for 10 years. So I think that was the first thing that surprised me is that I did have a little bit of identity. Okay, what am I now? Right. So just kind of walking into that reality. And the second part of it was that I really hadn't planned for what am I going to do when. And so when I finished kind of this little time that I was doing, I then started doing everything, right? I started trying to figure out how to do everything. And I'm taking two different certification courses and I'm working on this and that. And
Oh.
finally I still have an executive coach and she stopped me and said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Everything." And she said, "Stop." She said, "First of all, I thought we agreed that you weren't going to do anything for 6 months." I said, "I know. I don't know what happened. But having been someone who was always busy, right?
Mhm.
Emails flying. You're always in a meeting. You're always doing this. The idea of stepping out of that and then just feeling like there's not much, nobody's sending you an email. No one's got an urgent issue. I
Oh.
think that was an adjustment for me. And I answered the adjustment by doing a whole lot of things. Um, and I thought to myself, I'm surprising myself because I couldn't wait to retire to chill out. And yet I was doing the exact opposite of that.
Right.
And that surprised me.
Wow, that's a touching story. And because and Lisa, and don't make light of this, you had a huge job. Like your job brought status. Your job brought money, money,
Mhm.
money.
Mhm.
So it had to be, some psychological issues that you probably went through when you transitioned.
Yes.
So because you've gone through this, what advice do you have for our pre-retirees?
One of the things I always advise people now is give yourself permission to do nothing for a period of time and then tell yourself how long that's going to be. So for me, I told my coach I was going to do anything for 6 months. I had no accountability because I hadn't talked to her in a while. And it took a while for her to figure out that that was not the case. But I wish that I had taken more time and then said, okay, after you've rested or whatever for this period of time, then you can go and take this certification and then you can go. But when I left, I thought I got to do all this right now while the, strike while the iron's hot. People still
Mhm.
know who I am. I got to get out there, I get my name out there. And by the time we get to, 9 months in, I was tired. I was like, what am I doing? And so I would encourage people, you've been in this, you've achieved a lot, whatever job you're in, give yourself permission to just rest. And maybe it's not sit on the couch and Netflix and chill. But
Mhm.
maybe it's really designed for yourself. What you're going to do for the first 3 to 4 months, that's for you, right? Maybe you're going to take a trip, maybe you're going to whatever it is. So I encourage my clients now when you retire, the first thing when they tell me they're going to do something, I said if it's not just for you, I'm going to advise you not to do that. Take the time for you so you're not bitter about it. And so some people retire. I think one of the biggest and I don't want to call it a mistake, but one of the biggest challenges is you step out of retirement. Everybody knows that you're retired and they have lists of things they want you to do. For those of us who have children, they think that we now are the next babysitter, or now I don't need aftercare or I don't need before care because I have grandparents who are going to do all of this for me. And that is where we have to really start to protect our time, right? Have a plan. Yeah, it's okay to be helpful, but make sure you don't become the Uber driver and the Lyft driver,
Mm.
and make sure you're not public transportation for everybody in your family who needs a ride someplace. And that happens when we get into retirement. And as a result, we get resentful. And then we go back to work. Like if I'm back to work, I don't have to deal with these people.
That's true. Well, since you mentioned that, And grandparents,
Yeah,
you had to say no. So did you set boundaries with them? How did you do that? Did you have a family meeting? Because somebody needs to know.
Somebody needs to know. So the advantage I have is that my grandkids don't live here. So they live in Virginia and I live in Florida. But the challenge was now that I wasn't working, they wanted me to come back to Virginia. And so I said to my granddaughter one day, because she said, how come you're not working right now? So how come you don't come here and stay longer? And I said, you're right. I'm not working anymore, but airline tickets and time and all that's expensive. And she said, yeah. I said, I'm retired. I don't have a paycheck anymore. And her response to me was, I know, but you have all that money that you had saved up from when you were working. I thought,
that's a smart granddaughter.
I thought to myself, she's dangerous because she has no idea. In her mind, you still have exactly the same amount of money you had before. It's just that you're not working now. And so I did have to, talk. Okay, I can do some things, but I'm not going to be the grandparent who's doing all that stuff. And for people who are clients of mine, I say to them, you have to, that's why you leave with a plan, right? You leave with a plan, and you may have to have a couple of meetings that say, okay, if you need my help, let's talk about what I can help you with, because most of our kids do not have that perspective. Those of us who have grown children, it's like, yeah, but you're not busy, so why can't you do that? And the response has to be, even if I'm not busy, it's my time, right? I have worked all of this time, but it's my time. And I think that's where we have to learn to be a little bit more selfish, because it is our time. Most of us worked a long time to get to that retirement place. And then sometime my response is, I think it's good for you to earn these stripes that we earned, right? We earned those same stripes. And many of us didn't have parents who would say, I'll do carpooling, I'll do pickup and drop off. I didn't have those parents. My parents were still working.
We didn't either.
So
we didn't either.
So I say to them, I didn't have that privilege and I survived, and you will too. So I think, when you're in urgency and in an emergency, I'm there. I want to help, but I can't be part of your regular plan. It won't work for my schedule.
John, I got to ask him one question before you pop one.
This is good because I'm thinking about you.
Don't think about me. Can I ask you one question before you dive in? And so you mentioned a coach a couple of times, that you have a coach. Why did you have a coach? Somebody want to know that too.
Yes. So when I was working, when I was a CFO, I had an executive coach. And one of the things that a lot of things my executive coach taught me, but she was teaching me how to operate at that executive level, things like how to use your voice, and how to, because oftentimes, particularly as a Black woman at the senior leadership table, I was often and most often the only. And so learning how to use your voice, learning how to maneuver different situations. I worked on, I'm a finance person. That's predominantly an industry where you're not going to find a lot of people of color, a lot more women now, but definitely not, CFOs, Black CFOs are a needle in a haystack for the most part. And so, working with her was really all about how to become the best leader I could. And so that was worth the investment. She's still my executive coach today, because she's like, I don't trust you not to be in the middle of doing everything. So we have to check in once a month. So I'm obligated to check in her once a month, because she doesn't trust that I won't be out of control doing a million things. But for me, it's also about accountability. An executive coach or coach helps you to be accountable, because if she gives me an assignment, or she says, if I commit to this without somebody holding me accountable, if I don't want to do it, or if it's easy to slip out of because it's hard or it's confrontational, I then have to come back to the meeting with her and explain why I didn't do that. And she's pretty tough. So, she says, I know you do some of this work 2 days before and you're going to meet with me. And I'm like, doesn't matter when, I get it done. That's all that's important. And so that's why I had a coach, and I still have her for the accountability piece. She helps me stay on track.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that with us.
I like that. And I like the part where you said about being accountable for your time, because your children will pull your time away from you.
Absolutely.
They will. They will. And if you don't establish those boundaries up front, guess what? They're going to start pulling that time away.
Absolutely.
What happened to the time?
Yes.
So, get back on track.
Okay. He had to throw that in there.
He did. That wasn't a jab, though.
It wasn't a
It
jab.
wasn't a
It
jab.
wasn't a jab.
You're listening to another episode of Bartelle's Money Talk. We'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsors. Take charge of your financial future with Bartelle's Financial Coaching, led by Teresa Bartelle. We offer personalized guidance to overcome debt and achieve financial peace. Our results-oriented approach provides actionable strategies for lasting change, no matter your background. We welcome you to schedule a free consultation today at 833-252-0320. Start your journey towards a brighter financial future today.
So now you said you wrote a book called Retired and Killing It. Could you tell us a little bit about your book?
Yeah, so I wrote this book because I just felt like there was some things that I needed people to hear, both about my experience and about what it's like retiring, particularly for people who are coming out of corporate America, professional roles. Nobody ever talked to me about any of this when I was retiring. And I was talking to another friend. She's like, I have never heard of people addressing this side of retirement. And so it became really, really interesting to me that there were other people like me who had never heard of it. And maybe some people are privileged enough to work for companies where they provide you all this information. I had a great financial planner who they provided, but that was it. And I went to him. I said, "Can I afford to retire?" And he said, "Yeah." And that was the end of our conversation. And I retired. But at no point did I recognize or realize that I was going to walk out of this job and wonder, somebody's going to ask me, "What do you do?" And I needed to have an answer for what do you do? Because
Wow.
that's always the second question after what's your name at a cocktail party or any other kind of party. What do
Mm-hmm.
you do? Right? For some reason, we want
Mm-hmm.
to know what people do. And so
Mm-hmm.
what do you do was going to be a question that I needed to answer. And it became to the point where I thought I can't be the only one who's trying to figure out how they're going to answer that. So I took this killing it and made it into an acronym, and said, here's some things people can think about for retirement, whether you're in retirement, thinking about retirement, eventually going to retire. They're just some things. And quite frankly, it can also apply to if you're in a transition, because sometimes we're in between something, we're transitioning from one thing to another. So there are elements that are related to that. And so I decided I'm going to write this book. If lots of people read it, great. If 2 people read it, I know my mama was going to read it. So, I figured at least one person was going to read the book, and that was going to be my mother. Right. So, but people who've read it said that was really helpful to me because it helped me to think about what are the things that I need to keep in mind during this journey of retirement. And so the formula is killing it. K means keep moving, both physically, mentally, and socially. The first I says, imagine what's next. So stay curious and set some goals. What are you going to do? I usually do an exercise with my coaching clients. It's like, okay, I want you to list all the possibilities of everything you ever thought you might want to do. And then there are things on there that you're never going to do and you're really not that interested in, but put them on the list anyway. And then I want you to, what's your bucket list items? Everybody's got bucket list items. And then you got a dare item. What's that one thing that you're going to do that scares you, but you're going to do it anyway? Maybe you're going to start a podcast, right? And you're like, oh, it could fail, right? It's the thing you're worried about failing. So I tell people, imagine what's next, because the imagine what's next makes them excited. The first L is laugh a lot. As adults, for some reason, we stop laughing, right? Life gets way too serious for us and we really need to laugh more. The second L is live for legacy. And by legacy, I don't mean leave your kids $1 million. Most of us are not doing that. I feel like we should all spend our money and leave our kids enough to bury us and maybe a little bit more.
Stop on this one. Stop. Whoa, stop this one.
And that may conflict with all of the financial advice you've gotten, but I'm going to spend my money and I'm going to leave my kids a little bit. But I already told them, don't think you're going to get rich, because I really feel like I worked and I'm going to spend my money. But I mean legacy from the perspective of what impact are you going to make? And when you leave this world, what are people going to think about you? What do you want them to say about you in your obituary? So what is it? What legacy do you want to leave? The next I is ignite your passion. So we can figure out what we're passionate about. That's going to keep us excited. And that passion is, what is that thing that you'll do for free, right? You don't want to do it for
Mm-hmm.
free, but you could do it for free because you love
Mm-hmm.
doing it that much. The N is nurture your network. Our social network changes when we retire, and most people don't realize that's going to happen. Yes, all the people that you work with, who you are friends with, you're probably going to go to lunch with them once, maybe twice. And
Wow.
after that, everybody's busy. They're still working, or that everybody rolls into their own life. And if you move, that's a whole different situation. But it's about nurturing your network and figure out who's going to be, how do you cultivate this new network? The last I is invest in others. I think we've all been given a lot, and it's time to figure out how to give back, right? So who are you going to invest in? Whether it's people in your family. I always talk about the person who takes on teaching the kids about the family history and the family tree. I think we're losing
Mm-hmm.
some of that. So be the legacy
Mm-hmm.
person,
Yeah.
right? Invest in the young people in your family. Invest what you've learned in other people. Invest in the seniors who need somebody to listen to, right? We have seniors in our family who want to tell the same stories over and over again.
Oh,
Be the
yes.
person who listens to the same stories over and over again. It is an
Mm-hmm.
investment, despite the fact that we've already heard that story. But it's okay. It's only time that we're investing. And the T is tell yourself you're killing it, because even if on the days that you get up and you're just not
Mm-hmm.
feeling it, you got to encourage yourself, tell yourself you're killing it. And what I tell people is you may not go through all 8 of these, they may not even apply to you. If
Mm-hmm.
you pick two and say, I'm going to focus on these two, you will find yourself in a different place because you have a focus now. You have something, you have some purpose, you have something to look forward to. And so I wrote it because I want to help other people. My job, I feel like my job is to help people to figure out what's next in retirement, to stop looking at retirement as our grandparents' retirement, where you retire and you sit home and they show, the pictures of the people in the rocking chair. That is so not this generation. We are not the rocking chair
Right.
people. We're not the people in the
Mm-mm.
park playing checkers or chess. That's not this next generation. And so that's really where I'm coming from is, well, what are you going to be? What's going to be your legacy? What are you going to do in the next generation?
Well, I love that acronym.
Mm-hmm.
That is so fancy and it's so telling. And because you had such a high powered job, and many people do have higher powered jobs, but there's not like a whole lot of African American women that have high powered jobs like you do, or like you do in finances, right? So I'm sure all the listeners want to know, why did you decide to retire and leave such a high powered job?
Mm.
It's a really simple answer. I was done. And so what happened was
I
I
like it.
was taught, I had been at this role for 10, I'd been in my role for 10 years. And I was starting to feel like, I starting to feel like I didn't have anything more I could contribute that was going to really take it to the next level. I felt like I had, I really came what I did what I came to do. And so I started talking to people about what's my next role, right? Because part of it was, there were people who were saying, I think you should, go for, try to get a job as a CFO in a public company because that will open more doors for you. And I thought, yeah, that'd be interesting. Try, even if it's not a big public company, it could be a small public company. And so I was meeting with a different coach, not my coach, but a coaching session that I got as a part of a networking group. And the woman was a transition coach. And she said to me, well, what do you want to do next? Here's an assignment. Go away, answer these questions. What does the team look like? What does the company look like? What do they do? She gave me a list of questions. I go away, I'm thinking about all these questions. And while I'm looking, I'm like, I don't want to do any of this. I don't want to start all over again. I don't want to I don't want to go to a new place and at this age. And I just don't want to do it. So I came back to her and she said, so what do you think? I said, I think I'm going to retire. She said, that is not what I was expecting you to say, but I understand. And I was explaining to her that I feel like while I do feel like I could go into another organization, I didn't want to start all over again because you go into another organization, you have to build your cred, prove to people that you can do the job. You're starting all of this new, every job, I don't care where you are, has its own level of drama. So now I had to figure out the new
Mm-hmm.
drama and begin to work with the new organization. I thought, I don't want to do that at this stage. There are some things I want to do. I still want to work with companies. I can do that consulting. I still want to do some finance. I can do that consulting. And I wanted to do some work, but I wanted to do it on my time and when I felt like it. And that's what I do now. I have clients. but I don't schedule anybody on Monday because I never wanted to work on Monday until now. I don't work on Mondays. I
Nice.
will do some professional development kind of stuff for me and planning on Monday, but I don't work on Mondays and I don't work on Fridays. So, this is a perfect schedule, right? So I'm like, why would I
Mhm.
work? My financial planner said, yes, you can afford to retire. So now I can do things that I want to do. I don't have to do
Mhm.
them for the money because my retirement, he says, is, it'll last you. So I don't have to do it for the money, but I can earn money. Um, and so that's really why I left. Somebody asked me when I was having my retirement party, what would you say? And I said, I think I went in there and accomplished what I intended to, which is I made an impact and I left a legacy. And those are the two things I wanted to do. I wanted to make an impact on the organization and I wanted to leave a legacy. And for me, the legacy was the people, the lives. Dr. Maya Angelou says your legacy is every life that you touch. And so for
Wow.
me, touching lives and really impacting people and people calling me later to say, hey, can I ask you a question? To me, that's legacy, right? The fact
Oh,
that
yes.
you're still reaching back to me to ask me
Mm-hmm.
a question means that I left some sort of a legacy. And so for me, I felt like I had done that in the corporate world and just felt like there was really something else I wanted to do. And I found it. This is it. So I can leave a legacy of helping people to figure out how to walk into retirement excited versus afraid that they're just going to spend the next 20 or 30 years bored. Statistics say that the rate of depression amongst, people 60 and over is increasing. And a part of that is because people aren't working anymore. And so as a result, they're home alone. They're spending too much time alone by themselves.
Mhm.
Loneliness rates are high. And so, people are trying to figure out what do I do to keep myself excited. Everybody doesn't want to play pickleball, right? My sister and my sister-in-law, they love pickleball. They think it's great. I have never picked up a pickleball racket, right? But they absolutely think they love playing pickleball. But everybody's
Mhm.
not going to play pickleball, right? Everybody's not going to
Mhm.
play golf. I'm terrible at golf. I just dig up the dirt. So I usually leave people's golf courses. They leave the golf course alone.
Ah.
They don't want me on the course. So as a result, I have to find those things that work for me, those things that'll make me move and get excited and plan part of my day. And that's what I want to help people do.
Love it.
Me too. I love that too. I got this is my question here. So I know that when you went through the process and you got to the point where, okay, I'm gonna retire, and now you're transitioning to retire, right? But before you got to that point, what are some mistakes that you think that are made with people that's planning to retire for retirement? What do you think
Yeah,
some mistakes are?
I think a couple of them are. One is, and you all know this from the financial perspective. I think that when people are thinking about retirement, the first thing they think is, I need $1 million, because that's
Mm.
exactly what the internet will tell them. You need a
Yep.
million dollars to retire.
Yep.
And so I always say to people, it depends on your lifestyle. I mean, there are some people who could probably retire on way less than that because they're just not going to spend that much money. And then there are some people, $1 million is not going to help you because you spend money like it's water. So it's that's not it. I think that's always a mistake for people to think, I'm never going to be able to retire because I don't have $1 million. So I do think that
Mhm.
that financial piece is one. From the other side of it, from the non-financial piece, I think one of the mistakes that people make is this idea that you're going to walk into retirement and immediately be happy. Like, I've been working and I've been dying to not work, and now I walk into retirement and I'm going to be blissfully happy, which is a mistake because just having time doesn't make you happy. As a matter of fact, having time can be a little bit dangerous because now you have 6 Saturdays. What are you going to do with 6 Saturdays, right? Like that,
Right.
people don't realize how much. When I work with clients and I show them the let's talk about a perfect week, and I say, well, what are you going to do this week? I don't know. That's a lot of time. What would I possibly do with all that time? And I think that's a mistake with people not realizing that, yes, it is wonderful to be able to walk out and do whatever you want. But after the honeymoon phase is over, if you don't have a plan, you are doing whatever you want and it becomes doing nothing because you're bored. You don't know what else to do. You haven't found the right network, because finding the right network when you're retired is important, especially if all your friends aren't retired. Some people retire at different times. So if your friends aren't retired, you really got an issue because now they're at work. And when they come home from work,
Mhm.
you're ready to go and they're tired and they just like you were, and they want to go home and eat dinner and go to bed and
Mhm.
do it all over again, right? So
Mhm.
just
Yep.
just knowing and figuring out what's my network going to look like and what am I going to do, And how am I going to make sure that when my honeymoon phase is over, I'm not just completely bored and end up going back to work because I'm bored?
Lisa, this has been a phenomenal conversation. It
I,
has. It
I
has
can talk to you
truly
guys
been.
forever.
We could talk to you forever. I could just keep asking
Yeah.
questions. Look at that. I won't do that to you because I'm gonna have you come back again.
Yes, that's what we're
Thank
gonna do.
you.
Yes,
I would
yes.
Yeah,
love
me
to.
too.
Oh, we would
Yeah.
love to have you. And so, because you know who your audience is, who needs to find you?
I would say if you, in particular, if you are somebody who's retiring in the next 5 years, you recently retired, maybe you're 1 or 2, 3 years into retirement, those are really the people, that's kind of my first audience, is to
Mhm.
catch people there. But I also work with people who've been retired and like, I have no idea what to do for the next, they still have 10 years, 15 years left, and they still don't know what to do with the next 10 or 15 years. It's not
Wow.
too late. It's not too late for you to find something to do. And I tell people, I'm like, my mom's 80, in her 80s, and um, she does tutoring for at the library for ESL. I'm like, well, there's something
Wow.
anybody can do who's born in America, who can help people who are trying to come into, who are coming into our country and are trying to perfect our language. But which, by the way, is most of us know, is a very difficult language to learn. It's easy for us, but our language
Mhm.
actually from learning doesn't make a lot of sense. It doesn't necessarily flow together in terms of how verbs are conjugated and all that. So it's a really,
Mhm.
it's a really important thing to do. But I also work with people, but people who are stepping out of jobs, particularly those who are stepping out of high professional jobs, not quite sure what's next, need some help figuring out, well, what can I do next other than golf, other than play pickleball, other than, go to cocktail parties or other people's parties and tell people I'm a retired XYZ, which is what people say. And I don't think that that's a real title. Just I'm a retired something. When people say, what do you do? I never say I'm a retired CFO because that's not what I do. That's what I did.
Right.
That relates to what I
Uh-huh.
did. Well, they say, what do
Mhm.
you do now? I say, whatever I want. And they're like, I don't understand. I say, so what do you mean? I say, whatever I want. I'm retired. And people just are taken aback by my excitement. I'm like, I can do whatever I want. I'm retired. And then they go, what? I say, I'm retired. I'm killing it. And so just responding to people that way, they just look at me like, that's not what I was expecting to hear. And I'm like, it's the truth. Like, I feel like I'm in a great zone right now. We'll see. I'm going to ride it as long as it lasts. I'll find the next thing to do. If this isn't it, I'll
Mhm.
find something else that gets me going and excites me. But I think that as
Mhm.
long as we have health and breath, we can impact the world and we can impact others, and we should figure out how we do that. We're all gifted to do something. There are some people who are gifted to grow vegetables. I do not like the dirt. It is not for me. But there are people who would love fresh vegetables, particularly in a day and age where everything we buy is probably slightly toxic with what they
It's
spray
true.
on it, right? And so
Mhm.
there are people who that's what they do, and they really could be helping others. But then, I'm going through this with food allergies, and I'm like, I probably should be eating some of these more organic things that are coming out of the ground as opposed to all this other stuff. But there are people who could really use that. I think we just all have to find that passion. And so those are people. For me, it's like almost anybody who says I want to be excited about retirement. I'm like, I am
Mhm.
for it.
Mhm. You make me want to be for it, and I am not ready yet.
Listen, when I'm
Okay.
done with you, you'll be ready.
Okay. Well, I might have to let you get started on me.
I like it.
Okay. So now, yeah, go ahead.
Well, so now if somebody want to reach out to you and kind of contact you and learn more about you and what you do for them to help them to get ready for retirement, or if you were retired already and you just want to reach out and learn how to be excited about retirement, how would they reach you?
So I'm pretty easy to reach because everything is retired and killing it. My Facebook page is retired and killing it. My Instagram is retired and killing it. My website is www.retiredandkillingit.com. So you type in retired and killing it, I'm popping up. I got some really good social media people, so I'm the only thing that pops up right now with social with retired and killing it. My book's available at Amazon. It's also available on my website. There's a accompanying workbook on my website. And then we're working on some other things that are just, to help people, tools, some free tools people can download. So we're working on some free tools that people are able to download. In the process of putting together some workshops. I have an upcoming workshop in about a week that's free on Eventbrite, and I'll be doing some more in the future and in Q4 and also starting in 2026. So wherever you log into me, you'll be able to get information about workshops that we're doing to help you learn more about how you can make an impact for your own life going forward.
All right. Well, again, thank you so much for joining us. It has truly been a pleasure and an honor.
Yes.
And we look forward to hosting you again, Miss Lisa.
Thank you. I look forward to coming back.
Righty. Thanks again for joining Bartelle's Money Talk.
That's all for today's episode of Bartelle's Money Talk. We hope you found our discussion insightful and empowering.
If you want to stay connected and access more tips and resources, don't forget to subscribe to Bartelle's Money Talk on your preferred podcast platform.
And please consider leaving us a review. Your feedback helps us improve and reach more listeners like you.
For even more financial guidance and exclusive content, visit our website at 𝐷𝐸𝐿𝐶𝐭.com.
Until next time, remember, the journey to financial freedom is within reach.
I'm Teresa.
And I'm Johnny Bartelle, signing off. Take care, and here's to your financial success.